So, why are we here today? Well, we are here to talk about why your learning isn't landing and what you can do instead. And essentially, today's whole webinar is about this trap that I think we've fallen into in L&D. This whole Fields of Dream fallacy. You build it and they will come, right? You put in all this time and effort into your learning, so they're going to take it, right? They're just going to do what we want them to do. That's not how it works, is it? That's not what the reality is. Because the reality is, we spend so much time, energy, effort, enthusiasm. We pour our blood, sweat, and tears into our learning. I've never met an L&D'er who wants to do a half job. I know you all here today on this call want to do your best. But then the engagement still falls short, doesn't it? People still don't come and take our learning. And this is actually a challenge that I've seen for the best part of the last 10 years. Because for the last 10 years, I've worked in organisations in L&D and in people functions. And I've witnessed this challenge. I've witnessed people spending time, energy, money, and lots of money in some cases, pouring into their learning experiences, not to get a lot back. And while I was watching this and seeing this happening across the L&D industry, so was Ashley, the other half of mass marketing that you can see there in the picture with me. And that's why Mass was born. Because both of us were sitting in respective learning technology companies saying, there's got to be a better way. Why aren't they promoting? Why aren't they marketing their learning? Why aren't they telling people about it? And that's why Mass was born. That's why we're all here today. Because we genuinely know and believe that marketing can really change the game for learning and development. Because this is what typically happens, right? I want you all to meet Peter. Peter's an L&D professional just like all of you guys. He's smart, he's passionate, but he's drowning. I won't ask you to raise your hands with who feels like they've got too much on their plate at the moment. Too many things, too many spinning plates. We're all there, we're all in the same boat. So Peter's feeling a bit stuck. He's in this never-ending cycle of content, requests coming in from the business, completely unfounded, 9 times out of 10, right? And just sheer chaos. He's trying his best, but he feels completely stuck. And he's trying to respond to all those requests, to stick with the business goals in mind, to create something that's really going to get people learning. But nobody's doing it. Nobody's engaging. And alongside that, because nobody's engaging, the business isn't taking him seriously either. And he's kind of hit a brick wall and he's wondering, are they right? Is it worth all this energy and effort? But the truth is, Peter isn't closing the loop. And that's why his learning isn't landing. And that's exactly what we're going to look at today. Because I'm sure some of you will feel so much empathy for Peter, spinning those plates, really trying to do your best, and it's just not resonating. There's no judgment here, but let's fix it. So when it comes to L&D and why our learning isn't landing, why people aren't getting engaged, there's 5 somewhat silent killers of what we're doing. Firstly, a real lack of audience insight. How on earth can we get people to want to engage with us if we don't know who they are? A lack of strategic alignment also falls into place there. If you're telling people to focus on productivity and developing new productivity skills within themselves, but the business is telling them, hey, use AI and it will make you more productive, we're contradicting the messages that they're getting. It's putting us out there on the edge in a silo by ourselves. So we need that strategic alignment. We need to stop being so content led. We need to think about overall experiences. How does one piece of content fit within the rest? How does it work so that somebody can get involved with learning and then come back time and time again? Of course, you're here on a call with mass marketing. So we believe that there's a big marketing problem in L&D. And the truth is, many teams, many businesses, it's no internal marketing. One email does not cut it. And then lastly, we're measuring activity rather than impact. 10 people completed this course. Yay! It's just not enough. We want the big budgets, we want the respect, and we need to be talking in that way. And that's why we invented the People Impact Loop. And the People Impact Loop is about embedding learning within the business and embedding marketing thinking throughout that. It starts with gathering those employee and business insights that we just mentioned are a silent killer of L&D. Actually working out who we're working with. What do they care about? What motivates them? We also then need that strategic business alignment. What are we doing to help the business bottom line? And it's only then that we start thinking about our content and our experiences, but really designing that with the employee in mind too. Once we've got that down, then we can think about engagement and campaigns. And then the final part of this loop that brings us right back to the start is measurement. We need to be measuring the impact of our learning more effectively than they really like the program. Smile sheets don't cut it. We need to be thinking about performance, behavior. We're looking at the business metrics and seeing how we impact them. But what really happens in a lot of L&D teams is we just focus on this bit of the loop. And it's not much of a loop, is it, if it's just one little segment? We're not thinking about the strategic business insights or the audience understanding to fuel that employee experience design. And we're not thinking about how we're going to get that great experience that we've created out into the audience. We're just creating, uploading to your LMS, LXP. Maybe it's even an intranet if you don't have those platforms. And you're just leaving it there saying, hey, look, done my job. It's there. You can go find it. And an example I love to give about this is Tesla. Let's think about Tesla cars. They're probably the one that's disrupted the market the most in recent years. And if Tesla just created their car, which is very different, sure, I'm not an electric car driver. I'm sure there's loads of benefits to a Tesla and would it be appealing to their target audience. If they just created this car and then opened a showroom in some nondescript town in the UK, put the car in the showroom and sat and waited. They folded their arms. They said, that's my job done. I've created this wonderful car. Everyone should want to drive it. Would they have sold many cars? Would they have managed to get many people just stumbling past that showroom and happening to have the money, in their instance, to buy that car? Probably not, right? That's exactly what we're doing when we just upload something to our learning platforms or onto the intranet or onto our LXP and say they'll find it at some point. Because the chances are they'll never stumble across it. That's not what happens in L&D. People won't just stumble across your learning platform or your page on the internet. And if they do, in the really random off chance that they do, they've probably not got the time in that moment to actually spend on learning. They might bookmark it and say, I'll come back to that later, and then never do, because how many times do we actually go back to things we've bookmarked? So creating a great experience on its own isn't enough. But that isn't to say that creating a great experience and really thinking about the instructional design, the learning experience design, and all of that incredible stuff that goes into creating great learning doesn't matter. Because you can't outmarket a bad learning experience. All too often, people come along to mass and say, oh, we've got no engagement. Can you create us a campaign? And think that that campaign is just going to solve all their problems because it's a marketing campaign and they've seen great success that mass has achieved previously with other organisations. So that's all they need, a marketing campaign. A marketing campaign or any kind of marketing cannot be a plaster over a bigger issue. If you've got a terrible learning experience and that people don't want to engage with, that they don't come along to, that they're just not interested in, no amount of marketing is going to help with that. None at all. I can hear someone's off mute. Are you trying to talk to me? I would take that as a no. No worries if you do want to interrupt me. Um, but marketing can't be that plaster over a really phenomenal learning experience, over a bad learning experience. You need the two to go hand in hand. You need a great learning experience, then you need to market it. But the only way you're going to create a great learning experience and great marketing is by understanding your audience, so having that employee and business insights, aligning with the business, and once you've done it, measuring it and then trying again. So that is why 9 times out of 10, in today's day and age, learning is not landing. I have walked into organizations who have phenomenal people in their teams. They have wonderful tech platforms. And you know what? Even some of their learning, I look at and go, that's pretty impressive, you know? But it's not landing because their audience aren't sitting there thinking, that's pretty impressive, you know? It's not hitting the marks for their audience. So for the rest of this session, I'm going to go through this people impact loop. And for each phase, we're going to talk about the most common mistake that L&D make, the repercussions of these mistakes, and one thing you can do this month to fix it. Now, I've said this month, you might want to extend it to this quarter. Maybe you want to do it this week. It's completely up to you. But I thought I'd be realistic because, of course, I could say, hey, you need to do a big strategic project that's going to last you the whole year to really rethink your L&D program. But let's be realistic. Who's got the time for that? I can see a few of you with your webcams on, the giggling at me. We don't have a lot of time as L&D professionals. The market is tough at the moment. So what I'm going to do is give you 5 key takeaways, 5 things that you can do almost immediately to really change the way learning is perceived within your business. So first things first, that employee and business insight piece. We need to stop assuming and start understanding. Now, there's the old British adage, can never say that word. If you know what they say about assuming, it makes an ass out of you and me. Bear that in mind. We don't want to make any assumptions. We want our people, we want to really understand our people if we're going to make this work. So, using the chat panel, I want you to let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 1 being absolutely not at all. How well do you know your audience? Just waiting for those to come through. Oh, we've got a right variety of answers. 6, 6, 6, a few sixes, fives, fours, six. Okay, so we're around the middle, aren't we? Ah, Michelle used to be a 10. Now I've changed to an agency and I'm at a 4. I feel that. As soon as you go into a new organization, you need to learn your new audience. Karen said an 8. That's good. That's impressive. I can see my current masterclass delegates that are on this course. They are very, very quiet because they're meant to be doing their research. And Kath, as a marketing for learning alumni, is cracking up. Absolutely. Whatever you're at now. Oh, Ellie said a 7 or 8. I like that. Try to find ways to better understand your audience. And what's really, really important with this is we don't want to just know them as employees at our organisations. We want to know our audience as human beings. What motivates them? What makes them come to work every day? Because nobody got out of bed in the morning and said, woohoo, GDPR training today. Cannot wait. So excited for that. It doesn't happen. So no matter how much you think, oh, this training's really relevant to their job role, that's not what's going to get them motivated. So the common mistake with employee and business insights is strategizing based on your audience assumptions. So I'd love to know how many of you that gave yourself maybe above a 7 have actually done some research and spoken to your audience, or have you assumed you know your audience well? But also a big mistake I see a lot in L&D is building and strategizing based on our own assumptions. I'd really like this experience, therefore my audience will really like this experience. You're not the same as your entire audience. In fact, as L&D professionals, we're kind of the biggest anomaly of them all. Because, you get L&Ders to do an icebreaker and we can normally laugh it off. You get the wider general population of your organisation to do an icebreaker and they'll want the grant to swallow them up. And like Kath just said in the chat, we actually like learning. That's why we're doing the roles that we do. Not all of your employees will be in the same place. So if we continue to build on assumptions, base it on our own biases, we end up starting on the wrong foot. Your entire strategy is misaligned. You will not be working in line with what your audience wants. Sheila just said she uses communities of practice to help understanding. Great idea. I love that, Sheila. Well done. Because the action I want you all to take within the next month is run at least one focus group with a diverse group of employees and find out what matters to them. By diverse, I mean diverse in its sense of you're like demographically diverse, so a range of age, a range of races, a range of job roles, things like that, but also diverse in their approach to learning. If you have a learning platform, find a couple of your star learners, a couple of people somewhere in the middle, and then some people that have absolutely never logged in. Find out why their behaviours are the way they are. Speak to them. Find out what matters to them, what motivates them. Why do they do the job they do? Just asking you to do one at this stage. Now, in the grand scheme of things, depending on the amount, your audience size, amount of employees you've got, you'll need to do more than one. No matter your audience size, you'll have to do more than one. But right now, I want you just to run one because a lot of L&Ders don't do this because they're scared. So 1 month from today, I want you to be able to sit there and say, I have run one focus group and I'm going to run some more. So that's your first task from today's webinar. And that's going to help you really understand your employees and your business a lot better. But speaking of the business, we also need to think about strategic business alignment. What's the business goals and objectives? Now, on this one, if I can find my poll, I have put a poll on your screen. I want you to answer, do you know the business strategy or plan of your organisation? Okay. Interesting results so far. Okay, couple more people to vote. Alrighty then. Let me share these results with you. Because I'm pleasantly surprised. 82% of you say you do know the business strategy and plan of your organisation. 18% said nope, and that's what I was expecting. Because all too often in L&D, we work in isolation of the wider business. And those of you that have said, yep, I do know, I want you to think about how much you consider that on a day-to-day basis. Because the biggest mistake I see in L&D is having an L&D strategy, if you've got one at all, that is completely isolated from the business strategy or goals. So, for example, if you were working in a car leasing business, sorry, Nikos, I can see your face at the moment. If you're working in a car leasing business and your business goal is to lease more cars this summer, how does your L&D offering help the employees reach that goal? All too often, I go into businesses and there is absolutely no connection between that business goal and that business strategy and what the L&D team are doing, which means that the C-suite never will take us seriously. Because if you're going to them and you're talking about something they don't care about, they're going to switch off. They're never going to see L&D as the impact maker we know we are and we can be. But we need to make sure we're working in line with what the business wants. So your action point here is, if you don't know it already, find out your business strategy and goals. If you're in a big organization, that might be published publicly. If you're in a really small micro business, go and talk to the CEO. However you're going to do it, find out what the goals and objectives of the business are. And then compare it against what you're doing in L&D. So that 82% of you that said you do know it, is your L&D plan and strategy in line with that? Are you actually helping the business achieve its goals? Does it align? And if not, I think we need a bigger conversation about why not. So we've done the insights and we've aligned with the business. We then need to think about our employee experience design. And with this, I always like to ask L&D professionals, how do you choose what format or delivery method when you're creating learning experiences? If somebody comes to you and says, I need this, and you've done the groundwork, you know that it is a learning need, how do you choose how you're going to develop that piece of learning? Yeah, let me know in the chat. Anybody? The boss says run it as a workshop. I wish I was joking, but this happens a lot. Ellie said, I think about who the audience is first. I like that. We have a pro forma that we use to help prioritize and the how. Okay. Usually told what sort they want when it's requested. Size and location of audience, topic, goals that we're trying to achieve. Okay, so there's a bit of a mixed bag there. Usually based on our team's experience. We are getting better at discussing this with the business. Look at what already exists and build upon that. Think about the audience, but being totally honest, it's dependent on resource and time. I hear that. Lots of top-down requests. Think about the why. Also keep in mind the impact of the specific audience to the business. Okay. So there is a real mixed bag. We've got some people here that, whether they like it or not, seem to be a bit order takery. Somebody comes and says, I want an e-learning course, and you do an e-learning course, or a workshop, and you do a workshop. And then others that are thinking more deeply about the audience. And this is really where we want to get to. Because the common mistake is that we focus on content rather than experiences. So we create a workshop because we're asked to, an e-learning course because we're asked to. But actually, when we do that, we end up creating lots of silos of learning. We've got one workshop, one e-learning course. We haven't got experiences that continue and go longer. And we haven't really thought about the why behind the request. If somebody's coming and saying, I don't know, we need a e-learning course on preventing burnout. Maybe actually we don't need an e-learning course. We need to look at the workload that people have. That kind of thing. Okay, that's quite a vast and extreme example. But we need to make sure we're not doing that. We want to create experiences that people want to come back to and get involved with time and time again. Because if we don't, people don't fall in love with learning. They don't start to recognize you as a learning brand that they can come to and that they can trust. They won't start seeing you as the internal Google where they just Google that. You want them to just come to your platform and just search that or sign up for that. That's where we want to be. We want to be the first point of call, but we're not, because people only come to us for one module or one topic or one program at a time. And that's because we're designing one module, one topic, or one program at a time. So we really need to think about how we can create experiences that give people something to latch onto and to believe in. So your action point for today is to audit your experiences. Think about it, whether you can make a change on this in this month or not. Think about your experiences. Do you have experiences? That might be your first question to yourself. Do you have experiences or lots of content? And again, there's no shame here. There are a lot of organizations that have a lot of content, and it's a post COVID repercussion almost because in COVID, we were just like, how much content can we get out to people to keep them learning? That's not right for today's day and age. That's not right for 2025 and beyond. So think about it. Have a little bit of an audit. Do you have experiences or lots of content? If you don't have experiences, are there ways that you could group things together to really make them more compelling for your audience? Because it's only then that we can create learning that's really going to grab attention, that's really going to be worthwhile when someone clicks through. And I always use the example of like you could see a really fantastic product. I don't know. What have I bought recently? Maybe it's a new dress. I'm just going to use that as an example. And it looks brilliant on the model and I really love it and I really want to buy it. And then I buy it, it comes, and it's actually really poor quality. It's already got a hole in it. It's rubbish. Am I going to buy from that company again? No, I'm not. I don't want to. I don't believe in their product anymore. That's what's happening when people land on your platform or they come to you for an experience and they're getting subpar experiences. And to really improve that and create learning experiences that work and that people want to do and that they actually need to do, it's to think about it as an employee experience rather than a piece of learning content. And once we've done that, then we can think about employee engagement and campaigns. I spoke to somebody last week on a consultancy call and they said, yay, the fun bit. So I hope you all feel the same, that the marketing piece is the fun bit. But the truth is, one email does not equal a campaign. So I want to ask the channel again. I want to ask the meeting chat. What does the word campaign mean to you? Now, masterclass delegates and alumni, you cannot cheat on this. I can see a couple of you on the call. But for everybody else, what does the word campaign mean to you? Oh, I like that, Michelle. A concerted effort to win favour. I like it. Anything else from anyone? Michelle's made me giggle. A collection of events and things to attract attention, getting people excited to want to join in and do something that's coming up. A communication plan to promote a training experience, a planned strategy looking for the long term, coordinated series of activities. Absolutely, you've all got it on its head. It's not one thing, it's a series of communications. It is a series of different channels. It is a long term experience. I would make the masterclass alumni feel really uncomfortable and get them to tell me how long a campaign should last. But I won't put anyone on the spot like that. At minimum, I just saw Nikos celebrating that I wasn't asking. At minimum, your campaign should be lasting 3 to 6 months. You cannot gain interest and intrigue and insight from a wide breadth of your audience if you are just sending out one email or just focusing on 1 week. What if your half of your audience is on holiday in that 1 week? It just doesn't work. So we need it to be spread over a period of time, be using lots of channels, not just email, and repeating your message over and over again. Because if we're not doing this, if we're limiting the channels that we're using, quitting before the campaign started, really great example of that is Learning at Work Week. Did you all put a lot of effort in at Learning at Work Week? I'm sure you did. What have you done since to keep that momentum going? What have you done to keep people engaged with learning? Maybe not a lot. Maybe you have done loads. And I'll hold my hands up. I know some people have, but I know many haven't. And the repercussion of this is that people don't see your marketing. If somebody was on annual leave, if somebody was really busy, if they had their own event, if their own product launch at that time, they just don't see your marketing. Maybe they delete your email and you never send another email, so they've deleted it and it's gone. We need to be consistent and we need to spread it over a period of time. And what I want you to do off the back of today's session is review your learning comms. Have you launched something recently? Or have you got something coming up? What is your plan to communicate that to the business? If that plan entails just one email that you are going to send one time and not a lot else, I want you to review it. I want you to think about other ways that you can grab attention. Is that on the intranet? Is that a poster in the office? Is it on screens in the office? Is it by sending out Teams or Slack messages? Think about where your audience are hanging out and how you can best reach them. And always make sure you're leading with the what's in it for me. There was one point when I was designing this webinar that I thought I wouldn't mention the what's in it for me. But surprise, surprise, here it is again. Your audience don't care about the compliance training. They don't care about data protection. They don't care about any of these other generic topics that we talk about. They care about the impact it's going to have on their life. I saw a really great example about cybersecurity, and it was a corporation cybersecurity training, but it was all in relation to how they could actually be more safe at home, what the impact is going to be on their home life. So really answering what's in it for them. What are they going to get at the end of your training? So review your comms. If you're only sending out one email, you need to be doing more than that. There is something called the rule of 7 in marketing, and that's it's an average, but on average, it takes somebody seeing your brand or company 7 times before they trust you enough to get involved. Same goes for learning. They need to see you repeatedly. Maybe it's not 7, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 14, but they need to see you repeatedly. And if you are sending out more than one piece of communication, are you leading with the what's in it for me? And then the last point, measuring impact and boosting value. Completions does not equal impact. Do you know that? I know that. We've all probably done that, haven't we? We've all probably done a piece of learning, whether it's an e-learning course, whether it was actually a face-to-face program, and actually done nothing with it. It's not good enough for us to be reporting on completion rates when we know that that's not actually evidence of application or that learning has happened at all. And the biggest mistake with this is the reporting, in my opinion. If we're reporting on things like hours spent and smile sheets, the C-suite don't care about that. We're not measuring the right things to improve what we've got coming in the future either. So we're kind of sending ourselves into an echo chamber, a really horrible cycle of people liked it, so I'll do some more, and I'll do some more, and I'll do some more, but we're not creating any impact in that. And the thing is, when we report on things like that, learning is perceived as a time drain rather than a value add. If you tell the chief financial officer of your business that last month we had a grand total of 2 million hours spent learning, I don't know, I should pick that number out for now. All they will see is pound signs. They'll see the money wasted, the lack of productivity. But if you change that narrative and start thinking about actually, and going back to the example about leasing cars, actually, this meant that people, after the completion of the program, leased 3 more cars a day. They'll be seeing pound signs, but for a very different reason. So, your action point off the back of today's session is to stop reporting on those easy to find surface level metrics. And if you're going to use them to tell a story. Maybe your repeat usage is really high. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about your learning? If your completions are really high and it's got a further story to it, again, like that leasing example, marry it up with other data from the wider business to tell a real story about what is happening when it comes to learning. So you've got your 5 takeaways there. And I've told you that I've only given you 5, and I've said you can do them within the next month or the next quarter, whatever you like. And you might be thinking, this is a lot of work, and it's fine how we've always done it. It's not, though, is it? The thing is, with marketing for learning, marketing led learning, and the people impact loop, there are naysayers. You will have people within your organization that will think, can you just get on with the job? I've told you to run a workshop, go run a workshop. But the thing is, we need to challenge them. We need to push back. When they're saying, oh, we don't have the time to go and do the research, well, do you have the time to keep failing? To keep putting out content that people don't engage with? What's the point in that? If you've got people saying, oh, this is too late, oh, why didn't you tell me that a month ago? We've already launched it. Optimize it, tweak it, change it. Learning doesn't just stand still. It doesn't launch on one day and then we forget about it the next. It's still there. You still need more people taking it. So think about how you can market it. And okay, there are some instances where we need things like completion rates and some of those surface level metrics for things like compliance. Fine. But let's not confuse that with really deep learning, with things that really are going to move the needle for the business. If we're thinking about how learning can make an impact, that's what the people impact loop is all about, making that demonstrable impact. We can't keep looking at these surface level metrics. And it's only once you get around this loop one time that you realize, okay, this works. It's only when you've realized you've got these employee insights and you go, the answer's so clear. Why aren't we doing this? I've just finished a research project with a company whose employees kept telling them, we want more face-to-face training. After my research, it was really clear it wasn't face-to-face training they wanted. It was more connection. They wanted somewhere to go to say, I don't quite understand this. Where can I go? What does this mean? A really simple fix for their experience that they wouldn't have uncovered if they weren't focusing on that employee and business insights. The strategic alignment piece. You will see L&D go from a tick box to a real strategic enabler, to something that people really rely on and want if we're aligned with the business. If we're creating experiences that really matter to our people, it honestly won't be so hard to get them engaged because they'll see what's in it for me. They'll see why they should care. But when we're thinking about engagement and campaigns, we're not just thinking about what's the fanciest way we can do something. I really want to create a TikTok video. We need to be thinking about how we can hook our audience in. And none of that matters unless we're continually measuring our impact and then boosting value by acting on it. If you get data through that says actually everything you've done in the last year is a waste of time, please don't do it all again. Read that data, understand that data, and act upon it. Now, I've been talking for 40 minutes now. And those of you that know me know I could probably continue for quite a while, but I'm not going to do that to you. But I have got 2 free resources for you. The People Impact Loop Diagnostics Quiz. You complete that and you also get a 30-minute consultancy session with either myself or Ash when she's back in the business. And the People Impact Loop Guide. This gives you top tips for each stage of the loop to really help you move your organization towards somewhere that your learning does land. Your learning lands and it creates an impact, and people actually want the learning to happen. So feel free to complete that diagnostics quiz and download the guide. I know a few of you have got the guide already, but download the guide and get in touch if you have any questions about how this impact loop is going to help you create learning that really lands. But in the meantime, has anyone got any questions? If you don't want to unmute yourself and talk, feel free to write them in the chat panel. I know some people get stage fright.
I've got a question.
Yes, indeed.
I was looking at your learning personas templates on your website. Unfortunately, it wouldn't let me download. I've got Canva, but I don't know what I did. It just went, no, this page doesn't exist on me. So while I'm here, I'll ask you about it because that's what I'm in that process of doing, is creating those personas to find a bit more about our organisation, who and what they are. And because I train face to face and online, I tend to slip in chats at the beginning and the end as a subtle
Yeah.
way of finding out a little bit more about people without having to do a pilot T type thing, because that wouldn't go down well in our organisation. I know that, was no point even asking. So I do it on a subtle basis.
I like it. I have just taken a note. I will make sure you have the template and the guide
That would
straight
be
after
brilliant.
this call.
Thank you.
No problem at all. I'm really pleased that you're doing that work. And I love the
Yeah.
idea of sandwiching it on your training.
Yeah. I train, so it's sort of like I'm doing an e-learning module learning how to be, instructional designer. So I'm trying to change the way it works, the organisation of how we do project planning, and it's very surreptitious. But yeah, it might get there, it might not. But we'll give it a go.
I love it. Well, I will make sure you get that through.
Thank you.
Where do you see the line between L&D and the comms team? How much responsibility slash influence should each have? Oh, that's a big question, Hannah. And it is one where I've got a bit of a politician's answer because it really depends on the organisation. But in my dream world, Kath's just hit the nail on the head. Try to be best friends with the internal comms team. Get to know them, get to really understand them. Once you build this trust with them, they'll be much more likely to let you or be okay with you doing your own marketing. The truth is, internal comms don't have the time or capacity to really get involved with the level of marketing that we need in L&D because it is a real huge issue for us. Internal comms are dealing with the whole business, and typically they'll say, oh, we can include you in the newsletter. But you want to be sending out more personalized messages. You want to be repeatedly reminding people. So partner with them, but say, this is what we're doing, this is what we'd like your help with. In terms of things like branding and style and everything like that, partner with them and understand what they want you to do. Internal comms typically give us a box. We have to stay within the box, but we can push the boundaries ever so slightly. So partner up with them. It depends on your organization. Some companies, their internal comms team are just like, yeah, you do it. If you want to do this yourself, you go ahead. Other organizations I've worked with, they want to be a little bit more controlled. But when you talk to them and you explain to them, this is what we're doing and why, then it's easier to get them on board. There's no complete perfect ratio of this amount of, like, you should be in control of this much, but you should be leading it. You're the ones that know your audience. You're the ones that know your objectives. You're the ones that know what is in it for them with the learning. So you should be leading it. Rely on them as like a consultant, expert kind of thing.
I often find that internal comms teams are usually as stretched as the internal L&D or training teams. So they're always super happy to get to find people to empathise
Yeah.
with. I think if you come at it from a partnership point of view, that I've never had any pushback from an internal comms team if you come at it from, we're fighting the same fight, let's fight it together instead of trying to, compete with each other. So
Yeah, I love that, Kath, and it's always nice to have that internal perspective as well. And
yeah,
I know I've spoken to a few organisations that don't have internal comms teams, but marketing kind of own that as well. So if that's
yeah.
the stage that anyone on this calls in, consider the fact that when you tell a marketer what you're doing, they will genuinely probably say to you, why aren't you doing this already? Because it blows marketers' minds that this is a whole new concept for L&D to really promote what we're doing. So get them on board. I think the key is to always explain why and why we want to do what we're doing. So, sorry, I'm just going through the questions. I'm great at content and marketing design. Michelle, absolutely. Take Kath's advice there on performance focused surveys by Will. Brilliant read there. But we do have some resources, and I'll make sure that it comes to you in the follow-up email after today's session. Ellie said, what are your thoughts on regular L&D newsletters rather than going out with comms? It depends on your audience again. I have seen some organisations where the L&D newsletter gets great uptake, really, really like superb engagement. People click on it, they click through, they go to the learning platform. I've also worked with companies that really, really, really try to do like L&D newsletters and nobody reads them. And the L&D team gets stressed trying to pull them together, but they're not making any impact because nobody's reading them. So what's the point? I think if your audience is open to and wants to engage with an internal newsletter, great, do it. If not, really send out more specific communications. Typically, those that don't want to get engaged with a um typically those that don't want to get involved with a newsletter, don't want to read a newsletter is because it's too general. There's too much information in it. They just want to know their one thing that's important to them. So really measure it with your audience, Ellie. Maybe send a couple, measure the open and click through rates and see what works. Do people actually read it? Does it actually increase engagement within your organization or not? And then make your decision based on that. Nikos, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. Hi. How are you, Hannah?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Fine, thanks. Could I just wanted to ask, you mentioned grouping things to create an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have something in mind that you could, bring as an example? What, because I had an experience of the opposite. I had to break it down to create a better experience. But okay,
Absolutely. I hear that. I'm picturing in many organizations, for example, let's take leadership training. It's a very obvious example for everybody. When somebody searches leadership training, they will be surfaced 30 plus different different modules that they can get involved with. Some of them might be face to face, some might be videos, some might be podcasts, some might be e-learning. So lots and lots of different things. They don't know what to click, and when they do choose one, they're only seeing a really small part of the picture, and then they bounce and they leave. If those are grouped together into an experience that can say, hey, actually, if you listen to this podcast and maybe if you do this self-assessment to say where your skills are currently at, and then you can complete this that will help you improve in the areas you're weak, you're guiding them and you're kind of positioning yourself as an expert rather than a content generator. So, of course, if you've got, say, a 2 hour module and you need to chunk it up, chunking, absolutely. But actually piecing those chunks together so that it's a journey for people typically works a lot better because of how our psyche works.
Okay, perfect. But technically, we mean like creating learning paths. Is this what we're talking about?
Yep, learning
And
paths,
then,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
But because there couldn't be another way to do this, could it? You couldn't write, I would propose that you see first this video and secondly you do that. You can't, can you do it otherwise?
You could do it with marketing automation, but in most organizations that wouldn't be available. So learning
Okay.
paths is probably the best route to go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks.
No problem at all. Okay, let me get back to the ones in the chat. I've done that one. How can we measure deep learning impact and report on it? Georgina, what do you mean by that? Do you mean the business impact that we were talking about?
So yeah, you know how you're saying it's good to get away from the basic metrics.
Yeah,
So it's sort of how do we measure the more complicated metrics that are hard to measure, basically.
absolutely. So really what we need to be thinking about again is this loop and this piece of strategic business alignment. Once we're aligned to the business, we need to look at what the business KPIs are. So I'm going to stick with the example of from earlier of leasing cars. If the business's KPI is increasing the amount of cars leased this summer or within the next 12 months, we need to look at the KPIs they're going to look at to do that. Then what we need to do is look at where that number is now, think about the experience we're creating and monitor people through it. So if you've got a cohort of 30 people that have gone through this program and they lease more cars, that's the deep learning impact. You've shown that learning has happened, that performance has changed, and it's benefited the business. Then you can compare that to those that haven't. I worked with a really big global institution recently, and they had that data to say that people It was a sales kind of organization. Wasn't completely sales. I can't say too much. I'm under a strict NDA with this company, but it was a sales kind of organization. And they worked out that people that were more actively engaged, so people that had logged into the learning platform more often, were more profitable for the business. They made more sales. So it's things like that. You're kind of looking for that correlation. Of course, correlation and causation, there's always that debate. But if you do the work and you do the research and you say, okay, look, here's my base group, my study group, to say these people haven't done the training, what have they leased this month versus those that have, you can start to really create that narrative and see that clearer picture. But it really depends on your unique organisation, what that would be. Does that answer your question, Georgina?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
No problem at all. And of course, if you do the diagnostics, we can have a chat about your organisation.
Thank you.
Deep learning impact. Do you have any examples of questions you can answer C-suite to find their pain points, wants and needs where L&D can help? For example, they ask for an e-learning on Salesforce. How can I? I'm laughing because, Benjamin, I've heard that of the e-learning on Salesforce far too many times because that's all the C-suite care about, right? Is sales.
Yeah. They
I
were
hear
like,
that.
hey, make a training on Salesforce. And I'm like, okay, let's do
I
that.
think
But yeah.
I think when it comes to firstly, we have in L&D this perception that the C-suite is this big scary beast that we know nothing about, and actually it's just human beings at the end of it. So I think actually saying, okay, so within this e-learning on Salesforce, what's the main problem that we're looking to overcome? What are they getting wrong on Salesforce? Don't say, I don't think it's a Salesforce problem, because nobody likes being told that we don't think they're right, but saying, so what's the main problem? What are we going to measure to show that this has worked? Questions like that will then uncover a bigger problem for you. So for example, let's say you said to your C-suite, what are we looking to overcome with this Salesforce training? What's the biggest challenge we're facing? And if they say, well, they're not logging everything in Salesforce, which means we're not actually creating enough, people are dropping off the pipeline, so we don't have a strong pipeline, and actually it's damaging our sales quota. Is that part of a bigger problem? Is that actually more of an organizational thing in terms of people staying productive and on top of their own workloads? Is it actually the fact that they don't see the point in logging everything on Salesforce because they're just calling people? Once we understand the bigger issue at play, then we can craft something that's really going to help them. Do they need an e-learning module to tell them that they have to log everything on Salesforce? Probably not. They'll probably just moan about it. We all know salespeople. But if it's actually, maybe you create a video that's like really like almost cinematic and engaging, and it's only 5 minutes long, and it's telling them actually this is a repercussion of you not logging everything on Salesforce, that might have more impact. So I think it is just sitting down and having that conversation. The questions that I typically would ask when I'm in a stakeholder call is, what's the biggest challenge you're looking to overcome with this? And what metric are we going to use to measure it? As soon as you get them talking about metrics, then you can work out what really matters to them. Oftentimes, those two answers aren't the same, though. I will warn you, Benjamin. They'll say, oh, this is what really matters. This is what we're trying to overcome. And then they'll give you a metric that's completely disassociated with it that they're going to measure.
Yeah.
It's normally the metric that is going to be the thing that you want to focus on.
Yeah. It's the first time I'm actually going to have like a big C-suite meeting in 2 weeks to really answer these types of questions.
I love that.
And I was thinking of like, what are the questions that I'm going to ask? Because that's but also what can I do? Because I can ask questions, I can have that information, but what is the impact that I can have on that? And that is something I think it's going to be like the translation to, okay, what can I do with learning? That's going to be a difficult one, I think.
Definitely. And I think if you can try to get ahead of the game in terms of understanding where the direction the business is going in, what's the strategic alignment for the business, where are they going, and then already have that narrative mapped out, like, oh, actually in L&D we can help in these ways. But I'm sure you absolutely smash it.
Yeah. I'll try. Thank you so much.
You have to keep us posted.
I will.
There you go. Michelle just said, you are the professional, Benjamin. Own it. You're the learning professional. I love that.
You don't know that. You don't know
Michelle
that.
is like the fangirl in this group chat. I love it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? I know I've taken up the best part of an hour, but I loved all of your questions today. As I said, if you do complete the diagnostic on the people impact loop, you get a 30-minute consultation with either myself or Ashley to talk about your unique problem. So like I said, Georgina, if you did it, we can actually talk about those metrics that matter within your organization. If anybody has any more questions, I'm more than happy to hang about. But if not, thank you so much for joining me today. I've absolutely loved this last hour. I do love doing these kind of webinars. I will be putting more on in the future, so keep your eyes peeled. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.